The final counting of the popular vote in this year's presidential election hasn't even concluded, and the gap between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump has already reached astounding numbers. As of right now, Hillary Clinton has 65.5 million votes to 62.8 million votes for Donald Trump. That is getting near a 3 million vote lead for Hillary Clinton, who will not be president, or 2 percentage points of the electorate more voting for her. And it looks likely at this point that she's actually going to end up having gotten more votes than Barack Obama did when Barack Obama became president. Now, the actual particulars to Hillary Clinton are not important for this. What is important is that I think a lot of people, more than in the past few years, can look at this result where the Electoral College gives the presidency to one person. The popular vote should have theoretically given it to another person, but that's not the system we have. And they think this is not sustainable, that we have been robbed in some way, not necessarily of a candidate that we love, but of a result that the people chose. And not narrowly. We're not talking about Florida in 2000. We're not talking about anything like that. We're talking about literally millions of additional votes. And then when you look at how many votes in the popular vote she's up in versus how many he is in the Electoral College, it's even more ridiculous. I mean, you're talking about less than 100,000 votes for the 3 states that would be necessary to flip the Electoral College over from Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton. And so people look at this, and I think a lot of Americans, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, whether they wanted Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump or someone else to become president, and they know that something is wrong and they know that it needs to change. We cannot have a system where in almost every other election, the popular vote goes one way and the Electoral College goes another way. Something needs to change. In this video, I want to talk about some of the ways that it might change. Now, the most obvious, and if you've been paying attention to TYT and you're familiar with Wolfpack, the attempts to get money out of politics through a constitutional amendment that's going by way of the states, going from state to state and trying to get more and more states to sign on with this to create a constitutional convention to get money out of politics, you know that a constitutional amendment can accomplish almost anything in America. And so theoretically, while the Electoral College is set up via the Founding Fathers' initial plans and the Constitution, an amendment could change that. And it's not impossible that that could actually happen. Now, if you've been following Wolfpack, you know it is incredibly difficult, and it requires the work of literally hundreds or thousands of people over possibly decades to get an amendment passed. There's no assurance that even after all that, it will actually happen. History is littered with attempted amendments that didn't actually end up going through. Now, I believe that a big push to get rid of the Electoral College via constitutional amendment would have a lot of the same virtues as Wolfpack. This is not something that solely appeals to liberals or to Democrats. A lot of people on the other side want money out of politics, and a lot of people on the other side also want the Electoral College to change. Now, unfortunately, there might be fewer of those people after they've now twice won thanks to the Electoral College and not the will of the people, but it might be possible. It will, however, be difficult, and that's why I don't think that a constitutional amendment is necessarily at this point the right way to go. But thankfully, there is another plan, and it's quite ingenious, actually. It's something I've talked about in the Young Turks before, and I'm going to talk about it here. And it is the National Popular Vote Bill. It's an interstate compact between a number of different states, and the basic way that it's intended to work is many states would sign on to this, and they would pass bills in their state legislatures, and it would be signed by the governor, where they would sign on to this compact. And the idea is that once 270 Electoral College votes worth of states have signed on to this, they would all pledge to give their Electoral College votes to the winner of the national popular vote. And what you would have there, regardless of what all of the other states that haven't signed on to the compact choose to do, is an end to the Electoral College. Because so long then as you win the popular vote, you will get 270 votes in the Electoral College and become the next president. You may not be able to have a gigantic landslide victory as some people have in the past, but you'll have the presidency, and that's certainly something. Now, there are problems with this plan as well, and this is something that many people have been working on incredibly hard for a number of years. The problem is that so far, they've signed on 11 states, which is admirable. But those 11 states only add up to 165 votes in the Electoral College, which means that much more needs to be done. 105 more votes of states need to pass this for the plan to have any teeth whatsoever. and that is actually going to be difficult. So I've been looking over the map and trying to figure out, is this actually feasible? And I believe a few years ago, Nate Silver did an analysis of this in 2014. And he found that one of the problems is that most of the most reliable Democratic states have already signed on to this. All 11 of the states, or 10 of the District of Columbia, who have already agreed, are already hard blue states. They usually go by 10, 15, or more points towards the Democrat in presidential elections. And you're actually kind of running out of those hardcore blue states at this point if you want to sign on more. So what you have is either the swing states or the red states. Now, the swing states, you could conceivably convince to switch over, but it is going to be difficult because the people in the swing states, the legislators in the swing states, like the way that things are right now, where our elections basically only take place in 11 states. Were they to get rid of the Electoral College, they may not be so important anymore, and so unfortunately, if they're being electorally selfish, they have little reason to sign on to this plan, which is really too bad because there are more than enough votes in those states to make it happen and to get rid of the Electoral College. And so if you can't get those states, or if you can't get enough of them, you then have to turn to the red states. Now, as I said, there are very good philosophical reasons, experiential reasons from the past few decades for some conservatives to be very worried about the Electoral College. And I think a lot of Americans, regardless of what they think about politics, are naturally suspicious of it. And so maybe some would sign on. But unfortunately, George W. Bush became president because of the Electoral College and the Supreme Court. Donald Trump will become president because of the Electoral College. And they can give the middle finger to the public if they want. They don't need the public's support. They only need the Electoral College's support. And so, unfortunately, it might be the case that many red states would not want to sign on to this. So, at this point, I'm still early on in my research into this plan. I think it's incredibly interesting, and the overall goal is more essential than it's ever been. And I hope that people don't, in the next few months, simply forget about this and move on. The Electoral College needs to go because it is an existential threat to liberals becoming president at this point, to Democrats becoming president. We've seen this. We can extrapolate from that what might happen in future elections. And those elections are going to be all the more important because of the damage that Donald Trump is set to do to this country. And so at this point, I don't know if the amendment is the way to go. I don't know if this interstate compact is the way to go. But we need to do something as a nation to stop this from happening again and have more elections be stolen by this archaic institution that, even if you believe the philosophical foundations for why it was started, it has never fulfilled those reasons, and in fact is doing the exact opposite in the case of Donald Trump. So I'm very interested to find out what you think about this. Do you think the Electoral College should be destroyed? Do you think it can be destroyed? And if so, in what way? Let me know down below.